Well, hello again, everybody. I hope you are having a fantastic new year. Happy 2023 wherever you are. This is my first video of 2023, and I'm not going to lie to you. I sat here and I thought for a while about what kind of video should be the first video of 2023. So I asked my wife. She was scrolling through her phone. She looked at me the moment after I asked, hey, what should I do for the first video of 2023? She looked at me and she said, Fab Predictions 2023. And then she went back to scrolling through her phone. And in her infinite wisdom, she's a very smart lady. That's why I married her. I'm going to do that. And in fact, it gave me an idea because this video is not going to be about all these random predictions that I think could come to pass, which we could make that video. Leave a comment down below if you want me to make random predictions, hot takes, if you will. No, this is going to be one prediction that I've had on my mind for over a month now. And it's one of these predictions that I think is more of like a tentpole flag in the ground moment for LSS for the entire year of 2023 for Flesh and Blood. And here is that statement. This year, 2023, will all be about PvE, or player versus environment, and multiplayer ultimate pit fight. I think those two formats will be the focus for this year and will provide the most opportunity for growth for Flesh and Blood in 2023. Why is that? Well, let's take a look at 2022. Okay, this is going to be more of a talky video. Maybe I should go for this. Wait, hold on. Look, if this is a talky video, maybe I just bust out the big screen. Okay, where was I? 2022. Yes, that's right. Okay, so take a look at what happened in 2022. In 2022, the organized play pathway was revealed. This idea where you can start with lower level stores, you can earn your like PTIs to get you in higher level events, perhaps at stores, and then work your way from those events at local stores, maybe to more regional events, and then more high competitive events, professional events, all the way up to the World Championship, right? We watched this play out all last year, and it was a success. And in fact, it wasn't just a success. I would consider it a resounding success. After the way it functioned last year, I mean, think about how it went. It was smooth, it was functional, and it paid out at the end. That's a big deal, okay? There are games that have attempted this exact thing, and they fumbled on one of those 3 points. It wasn't a smooth process. It wasn't even functional. Perhaps the pathway didn't even work. Or they didn't pay out at the end, maybe because they didn't have the capital to actually pay out. And none of those things really were a stumbling block for Flesh and Blood and LSS. And that's a big deal because what this does in 2022 is it says to the wider TCG gaming space that Flesh and Blood has grafted itself into that space as a place for you as a competitive player to come and play card games for competition. Maybe for money, but just in general at a competitive level. There's options for you. In fact, all the way from the top to the bottom, you can fit into any of these type of events. You can go all the way to high professional events, all the way down to like more casual events at the bottom that help you work your way up. This is what LSS has established itself as in the year of 2022, and we watched it play out. Now, 2023 going forward, we've already seen that they've made the announcement that they're making some tweaks to the system, some little changes to the system, but that by and large, it's just going to function again that same way. And we can assume, outside of, something crazy happening, that it's going to be successful again. But the question becomes, does that provide a huge level of growth for the game in 2023? And I would posit no. I would say no, that it just because it was successful last year doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to bring this wide range of players into the game simply because they had a very successful and will probably continue to be very successful with the competitive side of things. Namely because a lot of players don't consider themselves as highly competitive players. And the wider world of TCGs, people are looking to play games for fun with their friends in different ways, sometimes cooperatively, sometimes against each other, but with the understanding that they're going to engage in this activity for leisure or for recreation or for fun, not to make it necessarily a business, right? And this is why I say 2023 has the capacity for great growth because I think they're targeting PvE, player versus environment, and ultimate pit fight or multiplayer Flesh and Blood as the tentpole like concepts for this year. That is a scary statement if you don't enjoy the idea of one of those formats, perhaps, and that's another topic completely, maybe another video completely. I think there's perhaps some people out there that haven't played Ultimate Pit Fight or multiplayer, you know, like Flesh and Blood in general, that think one thing about it, that haven't necessarily actually engaged in it, and it may be a completely different thing. And I will say this right now, and I will die on this hill, that format is fantastic. It is amazing, and I would love to play that bi-weekly on a show on the internet. So I'm going to do that bi-weekly on a show. More talk about that a little bit later, but it's a really good format and one that you should engage in. But if you're a casual player and you want to engage in a really fun game with new mechanics, and you want to do it with your friends or perhaps against your friends, these are the formats that you would pick up rather than, well, maybe classic constructed playing at a ProQuest, for example. Now, I should pause here and say this. What are the actual facts or the actual clues that could lead me to make this prediction? Because for me, this is not necessarily a like kind of a tinfoil hat theory. For me, this is like LSS has sort of been raising the flag. They see the winds and they want to follow this direction. So they're going to raise the mast and catch the wind and head that direction. So let's talk about that. First things first, we do know that PvE is slated to release sometime mid-year, I believe. I think it was said in either an interview that James White did or LSS put out a statement somewhere that it was going to come out mid-year. Nevertheless, if PvE drops this year, of course, that is one of the ideas or one of the moments that, of course, PvE can be engaged in prior to people just creating it on their own, which there are some really cool fan-made PvE campaigns out there. But the moment that it drops, that PvE like officially drops, and depending on how they actually kind of implement that either at a store level or like a product that you can purchase, that's going to be a very big kind of a litmus test for if this is going to be something that casual players from other games or just in general from Flesh and Blood latch onto. But there are other clues as well, and this is one of those things that I wanted to highlight with some cards and with Dynasty in general. Okay, so we're back on this screen because I want to show you a couple of things. The first thing I want to show you as far as clues as to why we might be heading in the PvE/UPF direction comes from the way that Dynasty is sort of constructed or given to us, or perhaps even just the cards that we find in this set. Okay, so Dynasty is an interesting beast because we get cards like Beaten Trackers, which are incredibly powerful and very good for Rhinar, right? We get cards like Skullcrack, also very good for Rhinar. We get some cards, and I can just kind of bounce around. Obviously, Assassin is introduced into the game, and that is one of those things that I think is primarily for the purposes of competitive play, right? Playing a new class in competition in general, right? And there's obviously some powerful cards that you can find and tuck into decks that exist already. You know, like Looming Doom, for example. You can pop Looming Doom into Viscerai lists, and it becomes sort of this secondary win condition. But there's also a lot of these sideways movement cards, like, for example, Aether Slash. Like, if we click Aether Slash here, this card is a 1/4 that says when it attacks, if a non-attack action card was pitched to play it, deal 1 arcane damage to any target. This is essentially the same thing like that we've seen in previous sets, the same style of card, just a sideways movement or even perhaps a step down in power level comparatively to some of those previous cards that we've seen put out, which is interesting because here's a sideways move or perhaps a step down movement of a card that we already have. And it's not just that card. There's a variety of cards that do that exact same thing, that basically just give you a sideways move into the same style of card, gives you the accessibility of maybe playing that card because it's newer, easier to get your hands on, but it also just like doesn't really change much for competitive play if there's a sideways move style card. But what it does allow you to do is build a slightly different version of a PvE deck, particularly if they implement PvE with some sort of restriction for deck building, as well. And also, I think there's a couple of things that should be noted that you could also play some of these cards in like commoner format if commoner, because common cards exist, and you build that previous card into commoner. Now you have the capability of playing something of that style. But essentially, we have cards that are either sideways moves, maybe slight downgrades in power level overall, that allow you to play slightly differently in a PvE setup. And another card, or really cycle of cards, that emphasizes that are all the blessings. So if we go blessing, there are blessings for every class in this set. So there's blessings for Blessing of Savagery for Brute, Patience, Blessing of Chi, Blessing of Steel, Blessing of Ingenuity, Focus. These cards, they'll interplay as an aura, and they won't trigger until the start of your next turn, like most auras do, specifically like the old Guardian auras kind of all did this, right? So they will interplay, and then they'll wait, and they'll wait, and then they'll wait, and then they'll trigger, right? That style of card is overall, and this has sort of been proven over the course of the way that the game is played out in the course of multiple sets and multiple auras being released, it's proved that that style of card doesn't usually make the cut in competitive play. It doesn't. Like cards like Blessing of Savagery that give you a buff, okay? It just literally, you have to play it and then wait, and then you get a buff on an attack. That exists since Welcome to Wraith in Guardian, and like Crucible of War in Guardian. Those cards have been in existence this entire time, and they don't really see play because you don't have the time to invest in a card that doesn't do anything right now. But where do you have that time? Well, you have that time to play any of these cards and see value from them in slower formats. In a format where there's multiple players that could take multiple targets and perhaps give you a reprieve on a specific turn where you won't be taking damage. And that can happen, and it does happen, in Ultimate Pit Fight, in multiplayer. These cards are tailor-made for something like an Ultimate Pit Fight, where you can establish one of them, pretend that you're playing innocuously, and then get a benefit after not really having to like overextend and basically lose out on activating this effect because you've had to block out on your turn like you would in a 1v1 game. Because in 1v1, you play something like Blessing of Steel, which gives your next weapon attack +3 or whatever, and your opponent's like, cool, well, I'm just going to send 14 damage at you, and you don't have any resources because you blocked with your hand, and then your Blessing of Steel doesn't do anything. But in PvE, where your opponents, or I should say your teammates, could be defending you or, attacking these creatures, however they have it play out, you may not take any damage, or you may not have to block with cards from your hand. And so this Blessing of Steel could give you a huge benefit. And now you can build a deck in that format where you play like 5 of these cards that all sit on the field, and then you just like alpha strike this, big boss out of nowhere for like 25 damage on a turn because you've established all of these auras that all pop because your teammates defended you. Or in UPF, the same thing could be true. You can play a Blessing of Aether, block out with like on that turn, you block out prior to that, and you establish a Blessing of Aether, and you kind of just play quietly and hope that your opponents are attacking in other directions, and maybe kind of politic a little bit. Say, hey, just you attacked me last turn. Could you just not attack me again? Yeah, I guess that's true. And then Blessing of Aether gives a buff, and then you can swing in with some massive damage. I mean, same thing with Blessing of Occult, which actually is seeing some fringe play in like Viscerai Control because it gives you Rune Chance. But the same exact thing, you just build up Rune Chance, and then you can have a big swing. Same thing, Blessing of Savagery, Blessing of Patience to heal yourself. All of these cards give you the opportunity to gain value over a longer period of time than you normally would have in Flesh and Blood, simply because they protect you. And the set is full of this stuff. I mean, look at like Never Yield. If we just go Never Yield, where is it? This card right here, Never Yield. I'm just going to click it. At the start of your turn, destroy Never Yield. Then if you have no cards in hand, draw a card. Okay, so this encourages you to block out, right? Now you would think, well, you probably do that in, standard, Blitz or classic constructed gameplay. You could, but then read the next part. If you have less health than all other heroes, gain 2 health. If you control less equipment than all other heroes, remove a -1 counter from equipment you control. This is tailor-made to be an ultimate pit fight card or even a PvE card. And it doesn't stop there, because Diabolic Ultimatum is a similar style card. If an attack action card was pitched this way, each hero chooses and destroys an ally they control. If a non-attack was pitched this way, each hero chooses and destroys an aura they control. This is also a UPF card. I would say probably more than a PvE card, unless there's cool synergies you can figure out where, you know, everyone wants something to be destroyed. But straight up, this card is tailor-made for UPF. Like, you just jam it out there. Yes, you can play this. Again, you can play all of these cards, and this is good card design. You can play all of these cards in standard formats, but namely this card functions best when there are multiple heroes that you can get multiple triggers off of this card from. And again, it doesn't stop there. It's kind of crazy. All of these like edicts and ledgers and warhorns all encourage you to play these as a royal character, or just straight up play these generics as you know, a character in UPF, because it benefits you to gain all of these things from your opponents, multiple opponents. And the entire archetype pushed by like the whole package of illusionist stuff encourages you to build up Spectral Shields. First of all, of course, you can't do this in Classic Constructed right now because Prism is currently LL'd, Living Legended out. But you could possibly explore something like this in Blitz, except keeping your Spectral Shields alive is really tough in a 1v1. But where it isn't tough necessarily is in multiplayer formats, or heck, in PvE, where you're keeping all these Spectral Shields, your opponents are maybe brunting some of the damage, and then you're getting all of the benefits from all of these Spectral Shield triggers. Everything that's looking for Spectral Shields to be on the board, you have capabilities of playing into. So this entire set, the entire set, feels like it was designed for those two formats that encourage multiplayer play, whether it be against each other or with each other. And you couple this with the idea that we're going to be getting some sort of a collaboration between the professor of Tolarian Community College, an avid, passionate player of Commander format, and just like casual extraordinaire for Magic the Gathering. He's going to be partnering with LSS to create a product this year. I don't know what that product is at all. I have no insider knowledge with regards to like what it's going to be or how it's going to function. I've talked to him and he didn't really talk to me about the product, and I didn't poke or prod because I didn't want to like stir up any pots or, you know, make any waves like that. But I will tell you right now, I can't in any way, shape, or form see that being some sort of like, here's a classic constructed, you know, deck, go play this, you know, in high competitive like formats. It just strikes me that they could put out a product that would be fantastic for, you know, like casual play, multiplayer variants, and have it somehow tie into PvE in a beautiful way, or UPF in a beautiful way. To me, it just makes sense that this year is the year where casual players from all sorts of games come together and try out Flesh and Blood, because we've already seen the success of the competitive scene. We know that's going to keep going. Now is time to strike while the iron's hot and pull people in to play casually. Let me know what you think about this in a comment below. I really want to know if you think the idea of you know, kind of pushing these two formats is a good idea for 2023. If you think that they should, you know, really dig in or double down. I want to hear your opinions on the formats in general. And if you've played UPF, let me know that down in a comment below as well, because I'm not going to lie, I will be playing a lot of UPF this year, and I think everyone should give it a shot. If you enjoyed this video, make a number climb slightly higher. Numbers going up is cool. I was told that. I don't know who told it to me, but someone did. Tell me in a comment below who told that to me. As always, thanks for watching.